Hey guys, welcome to the Big Talk with Awesome. I'm so excited for this episode. Thank you, Pierre, for joining me this episode. This episode's going to be a little bit different. We still have the news talk that we are going to be doing, and it's going to end around the 30 to 40 minutes, somewhere around there. I just didn't want this episode to be short. Because all these episodes just like nothing have been happening recently. It's just mostly it's just been the Justice League talk. So to add on to this Justice League Snyder cut, we're Peter and I somewhere again like around the 40 minutes. We're gonna be talking about the DCEU Universe Overall. We're gonna be going through Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, which I haven't seen, but I've seen clips of it, and I still have some thoughts for it. But anyway, yeah, so thank you again for just Peter for joining me this episode, and let's get into the episode.
All right, so the first thing that we can talk about is these adaptations of video games are coming out, turning into movies and TV shows, they're doing a lot very recently, and so some of these I'm actually very excited for. I don't know if you heard of some of these, or played any of these games, but like for example, Uncharted, starring
Mm-hmm.
Tom Holland, which I'm kind of jealous about because I always wanted to make an Uncharted movie, but all right, well, that's not an option anymore. I don't know this one without Roman. I don't know that one. It looks like Rainbow, somewhat like that. Mortal Kombat is getting a movie.
Mm-hmm.
They already had one, but I guess it's a reboot.
Yeah.
Tomb Raider 2. Haven't seen the first one. I want to see it. I don't know. I don't really know anything about it, but I don't know if you saw that one.
I did see that one.
What do you think?
I thought it was okay. It wasn't anything great. I definitely for me, like as someone who like very much like works out a lot, and trains like very seriously, I did like have like I was like major respect for Alicia Vikander. I think that's how you say her name, who played Laura Croft, and she got like really jacked for the role. So I was mad like respect for her for like putting in the work. But overall as a movie, I thought it was like okay. I don't think it was anything great, but I was like, if they make a sequel, I'd probably check it out. So
do you prefer the game? Like, are any of the games good? I'm playing through Rise of the Tomb Raider, like the 20th anniversary one, and I'm liking it, but I already see the villain cliche, so I don't know if you played the games, so I don't know if the original games or the ones that came out before that one are any good. I don't know. Like, do you prefer the games?
For me, I don't really like play video games all that often. I'll keep up with like all the video games that come out and be like, this game is coming out and this game like Jedi Fallen Order came out, and I was like kind of paying attention to that, or like anything with Battlefront, but I don't really play video games.
Okay.
For me, I always feel like, and this is just obviously, like I said, I don't play them, so I can't give like a full-on opinion about it, but in a way, like the video games will always kind of be better than the movies that are based off of them.
Yeah, exactly. And like even like one that has been announced, Call of Duty is getting a game. Even Minecraft is getting a movie. I don't understand. Like, okay, I'm fine with you guys like doing these adaptations of games and all that, but they have not been good. But we don't need a Minecraft movie. We don't need a Call of Duty like movie. Like, it makes like, what do you get? It's basically like, I mean, yeah, it's gonna have the Call of Duty name of it, but it doesn't need to be called Call of Duty. If you name it whatever, it's gonna do the same amount, it's probably gonna do more because of the name and all that, but it's not going to have any connections to the games because none of the games are even connected together besides like the small little franchise like Modern Warfare and Black Ops and all that. But
my take on that is Hollywood's just running out of ideas.
Yes,
they're not original. They don't know, like, they can't come up with original ideas. Like, obviously there are like the great filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and Martin Scorsese and et cetera, who are able to come up with like new original ideas. But those guys are far and few between. So you've got like the usual, the typical Hollywood guys trying to come up with ideas for movies, and they can't come up with anything interesting. So what do? They're like, there's this IP that's already out there with video games. It's already established that people already know about, and let's just make an adaptation of that because we can't come up with any other ideas.
I mean, that's basically all Hollywood's doing, and now Hollywood can't stop making sequels because Pikachu, the Pokemon Detective movie's getting a sequel, which I saw that one. I thought it's fine, right? I mean, what made me go see it was Ryan Reynolds, but
yeah, same for me.
he's not Pikachu anymore, so it's not like it's gonna, unless he comes back for the role. I highly doubt it.
I mean, he's like his dad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously, I have no idea what direction they want to take that the sequel, but I would assume that Ryan Reynolds would be involved.
I guess.
Like, I feel like because that was your biggest draw for the first one.
Yeah.
So I feel like they would involve him somehow doing whatever, if he's a human or if he is like Pikachu himself. Like, I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the kid, like the main character. I don't remember the actor's name, but it's not like he did a bad job. But I got a bad first impression of him because the first time I ever saw him was in Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, and I hate his character. So he didn't really make a good first impression of me for me, and seeing him in that movie made me like him a little bit better because he just got terrible writing, so he didn't have any good material. Even it's the same thing here. He didn't really get any material. He was just there. I mean, and so the next, this is actually I'm surprised about. This is coming out in 2 years. Cyberpunk is getting a TV show on Netflix when we haven't even played the game yet. So we don't even know if we don't even know the game's going to be good. So why should we be excited for this TV show? And it looks like it's supposed to be animated, which should be fine. I mean, I don't mind if it's animated, but again, it's like, why are we already getting a TV show of this when we haven't even played the game yet? It's like, I don't know. It's weird. Are you excited first? I don't know. What do you think of Cyberpunk in that area?
I'm not like super familiar with it or anything, but I will say that I feel like this once again goes back to the Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like they don't have any original ideas, so they're like, you know what, this video game's coming out. Hey, let's like start production on a movie based off of it and come out with that. Which
will bring up Hollywood in our topic after this one, because this topic after the next topic is going to be a little upsetting, but so Mass Effect is getting a movie as well. I mean, I haven't played them, so I don't really care. I don't know whatever that is. Gears of War. Okay, I mean, cool. There's Call of Duty. Borderlands. I played a little bit of the first one. I don't know really anything about it, so I don't know what you can do with it. Again, Half-Life, Halo, which has been rumored, Fallout. I think Fallout is supposed to be getting a TV show. Okay, so this one I'm excited for. The Last of Us is wait. Okay, no. It says movie here, which is actually I never heard about. I think it was a rumor, but The Last of Us is supposed to be getting a TV show on HBO Max, which is pretty cool. I mean, I played The Last of Us. I played the second one. But so for me, as a fan of the game, and this is like the biggest problems when it comes to like game adaptations or like story adaptations and like just books in general, like anything that's adaptation of anything, I kind of want to see the same story but told in a different told in a different way. So do you know the story of The Last of Us? I don't know if you do, because I'm going to kind of put some pointers, but I'm not going to spoil them for people that haven't played it.
I have obviously heard about it, and like it was all up in like pop culture and everyone was talking about it, but I don't really know much about it.
Okay, so like if this is what I want them to do. Instead of having it pointed through Joel's eyes, and because Joel is this more like broken character, so if the show starts out through Ellie's eyes, because then it has this more mystery behind Joel and why he's this broken character, I think it would add more like it would just add more something to the show and add more to her character, and just seeing Joel like, and for people that never played the game and just seeing them and seeing Joel for the first time broken and not want to do anything with Ellie or anyone, I think it could be a cool way to put like just make it different from the game and just have it separate and not like copy and paste like The Lion King 2019.
Yeah.
So I think they could do a whole lot with it. And next, I mean, because for me, I think it would be best to separate like two, because like I think it would be better if there's like a TV fans of the show instead of trying to please the game. I mean, it's I think you should please the people that play the game, but you're gonna have a completely different demographic, like just in general. So whoever watches the show are most likely not going to be a fan of the game or not, or just never played it. So it's better off to tell a different story. Well, the same story, but if you want to tell the same story, but in a different way to please both sides, because people whoever played the game might not like the TV show if you just repeat it. And so, I mean, I just want to see if they're going to do that. I want to see it a different way. And so I'm not basically wasting my time. And
Yeah.
Silent Hill.
That
Yeah.
is a kind of a slippery slope, though. I think because, like, obviously you have fans like you who want to see something different,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of goes back to kind of like The Lion King, how that they essentially was just like a copy and paste type story from, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to look at the animated original, which like everyone thinks is like amazing,
Yeah.
and then we're going to just try to copy and paste that into live action. And people complain that like, oh, this isn't original, it's soulless, like it's just like the same thing.
Yeah.
But then you also have on the other side, and once again, I'm not like, I don't feel sorry for Disney at all because they're Disney and they're money hungry and everything. But
I mean, they're taking everything, so.
Yeah, but like on the other side, you have like the Mulan remake, where
Oh God.
I'm not interested in the movie at all. But honestly, the Mulan remake is one of like the few Disney remakes, or at least like one of the first ones that they've made that actually like deserves a remake in a way, because they're making it more accurate to like what happened like with like the historical story and not like the animated movie. But then you also have like a lot of people being like, oh, where's Mushu, where's the music, because they're going to be singing and stuff and complaining about that. So it's kind of like a slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess for example, like there's things that you have to like because some things in the Last of Us you just can't do as a TV show. Like there's certain things that you can't do. It's like the Disney remakes. You can't have like a live action musical. Well, you can, but like in a reality of like, for example, Mulan and like war that's going on, no one's going to be like singing in the middle of war in like real life. So it's going to be like feeling out of place. That's like the biggest complaints about The Lion King, because it's fine if you want to make a remake of The Lion King and make it like live action. But the biggest complaint for me, I don't know if it's for you or anyone else, is that it looked weird when they were talking like live action. And so it's like, I don't like that. And so maybe if it was like more like a documentary and they never talked, maybe it would have been better, because I mean, you would have to read their like emotions through their eyes and how they move. And so, and that's another thing. It's just, they just move like robots. But getting off topic, but yeah, that's just what I hope from these movies and shows, that they try something new and please both sides. And so,
yeah, my take on that would be just go with an idea, stick with that idea, and make the best possible movie you can make, because you're never going to be able to please everyone.
Yeah.
And so like, but here's the thing though, Disney will keep making these live action movies because they keep making money. Like they're banking on nostalgia so much. Like The Lion King made over $1.6 billion. Like the Aladdin remake made over $1 billion. So if they keep like raking in all the money, a lot of it is from like nostalgia and people being like, oh yes, I love the original animated movie, because Disney did amazing work with their animated movies back in the 90s. People are going to keep going to see those movies, which means more money for Disney, which means Disney will keep making those kind of movies.
Yeah. And so like from us, like as people that go and watch these movies, what makes us see like these movies, like, because like from our standpoint of view, if we see like the rating, like the Rotten Tomatoes terrible, it means like for us, we're not gonna like watch that movie, but if it still makes money, the studio doesn't care about the rating at all. If they just make money, they're gonna keep making more. That's all they care about. They don't care how well the Rotten Tomatoes says how bad it or good it is. If it just makes money, they're just gonna keep making more. And so that's what Disney's basically doing, and that's what Hollywood's doing, because they're giving us like adaptations of stuff that we want, but they're not putting enough effort into them to like deserve a sequel or more of them. And so
Like you even look at like the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Like I think the first one is a solid movie, and then it just all kind of goes downhill from
yeah,
there. But like those have pretty bad scores on like Rotten Tomatoes, but they kept making a lot of money, so they kept making them. Like I think which one was it? Which was the one that came out in 2014?
I think it was The Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, well, like
I'll
whichever
look it.
one that one was, that was the highest grossing movie of the year that year.
uh Transformers. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the Dark Moon one.
Yeah,
No,
like
Dark Moon came out in 2011. It's 2014 that Age of Extinction came out.
okay, yeah, but that was the highest grossing movie of the year that year, I'm pretty sure. And so it got like did terribly with critics, and I don't think it did well with audiences either. But it
Yeah.
made a ton of money. So
Oh yeah, it did. It didn't really do well, but it did well in the box office
Mhm.
because like from our point of view, it looked like they were going to do something new, change it up, because Shia LaBeouf didn't return for this one. It was a new cast, and like Mark Wahlberg was the star of the film, and so that's like, oh, okay, I'll go out and see what they're gonna do, because it seems like they're gonna go into a different direction. Now it's the same direction, just different casting, and that's just the thing with all these movies. But I mean, we can keep talking about all these like adaptations, like Silent Hill's getting a sequel. I didn't even know Silent Hill got a movie. I did.
I didn't either.
Just Cause, that got one. That's getting one. I think it's a TV show though. What is this? Oh, Firewatch. I heard about this game, but I never played it. Yeah, that's basically it. That's interesting. Assassin's Creed 2. Didn't like the first one, but okay. I mean, sure. Heavy Rain. Yeah, I mean, like we can keep talking all day, and some of these that we don't even know about. But this is the one that I was talking about Hollywood coming back into play. Is that, well, I guess it's not really Hollywood, but Universal and AMC have agreed to shorten their theatrical window to 7 days. So whenever they decide to release like Fast 9, which okay, we don't need to talk about, but whenever Universal decides to release a movie, they only have that movie only has to be in theaters for 17 days before it goes to streaming, or DVD or whatever, or VOD. So which kind of hurts Hollywood in some sort of way. So I don't know why Hollywood. That's the thing. I don't know how like all these work, because like there's contracts with these like all these theaters, like even with Harkins, like and all, and like Hollywood and all that stuff. I don't know how this got through, because I don't. And that just makes even that puts other studios in their heads like, oh, if Universal can do that, that means we can do that too, meaning they can make more money. Well, they think they can make more money, but I think they will actually lose more money, because there's a lot of people that like the theaters. And so I don't know, but again, we don't know a whole lot, because it doesn't say if the movies are going to stay in theaters. And so, next they can move it to video demand, and for people that don't want to go see it in theaters. So I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah. So wasn't it the original? Yeah, so the original was 90 days before they can ever have it go to homes, before it's available to be home. So now it's 17 days. I mean, whatever. I mean,
I think it's just Hollywood just doesn't really know what to do right now with COVID and everything, because I honestly I think you could make a case that every movie that's coming out, obviously the rest of this year and potentially all of 2021,
We'll go to VOD.
has been impacted financially.
Yeah.
Outside of stuff going straight to streaming, like say like Zack Snyder's Justice League and things like that. But
Oh yeah.
all the pure like theatrical like movies. That's why they keep delaying Tenet. That's why like Wonder Woman 84 keeps getting delayed. That's why like Disney has moved like all their MCU movies like forward. I don't know like by like how much, but they've moved like their entire slate. And
Yeah.
so I think there's just so much uncertainty because obviously the theatrical experience is, I'm sure like all of us movie fans love that,
Hmm.
but everything's taking a hit from whether it's people being scared to even go to theaters because they're like, okay, they're worried you're in a tight space with a lot of people, in the dark, people are eating and everything. And then you also have the fact that theaters might possibly limit the capacity of movie theaters and like, and basically say like, okay, so like, say like, you can only fill up 50% of a theater. And
But
so
I mean,
that
it
like
makes.
impacts it hugely.
I mean, yes, I can understand, but it still makes kind of no sense. Like, okay, fine. If you don't want to go sit in the theater, that's fine. If you're scared of people, like you're getting sick or whatever, but you're still going out in public. Like, you're still being around people. So what's the difference going and sitting in a theater? I mean, wearing that mask really doesn't do a whole lot. It actually makes it worse because it actually affects your system if you wear that mask. Because have you ever heard the term "don't wear the mask more than 3 times"? I don't. I think it's
Mm-mm.
no. It's more than once. I think it's what it said. And so, like, because all you're doing is just breathing back in whatever you got before you put that mask on. It's getting put on the mask, and you're just re-breathing in. So you're highly going to get more like sick. And so, I mean, like, so you're the rate of you getting sick in a theater. I mean, theaters weren't the cleanest place. So, I mean, like the higher, so it kind of evens itself out. But I think you have more of a chance getting sick going just in public in general than just going sitting in a theater because you can choose where you get to sit, and yes, they might lose money if they have to certain off certain seats in certain rows, but sooner or later, like Hollywood or like movie theaters will go out of business. Well, not Hollywood itself, but certain like studios will go out of business if movie theaters don't reopen in like basically now if they don't reopen. Because if they don't open now, they will never open again.
Oh, well, yeah. So they're in a difficult position right now because you look at people just being scared to go in like with large crowds, and there's the whole, ultimately it's just like the whole fear aspect of like, oh, I don't want to get COVID. I don't want to be around like large groups of people. Like, so
Yeah.
my big thing is, I think like a lot of studios are just gonna have to bite the bullet and send movies to video on demand or something like that because it's like it's just like you're not going to be able to like recoup your money because especially for like these big blockbusters that they've invested a lot of money into, like Tenet has a budget of over $200 million, and so they don't want to like have like I guess you can say like limited returns on that. They want to be able to like make sure to maximize the profit. And right now with the situation, and like even like with sports and people gathering in large areas, I know baseball kind of started back up, but the NFL is like concerned about what to do, and like players are like dropping out of the season and like foregoing their contracts this year. You've got like the NBA's in like a bubble right now, trying to start up like with the playoffs and all that. So it's just we're in a tight spot, I think, just not
Yeah.
only with like entertainment, like with regards to movies and sports, but just people in life in general right now. So
Yeah, I can understand why, but I mean, like, like if I don't know if you heard about this, but in California, they actually finally closed down churches. I guess church and public was still open there, and so which kind of odd. Which California is like the worst place like right now to be at from what I've been hearing. I don't know if it is anymore, but I don't like. So if people are fine to go into like church and like be around people there, like that's like the thing I don't understand. It's like, okay, you're fine to go to church and be around all these people, but oh, you're fine to go to the mall and be around all these people. You're fine to go to a restaurant and be around these people, because if you go to a restaurant nearby, they're not 6 feet apart. They're actually pretty close, and people are sitting there eating fine. And so it's like, and so I can understand why, but at the same time, it's like, oh, but like, oh, okay, I guess movie theaters, but majority of the people that don't go to theaters like are not going to go, and I don't know. But yeah, I can understand both sides.
Yeah, they're just in a tough spot right now. So they're gonna have to try to figure out what to do to navigate, whether they're gonna bite the bullet and just release certain movies they have ready
Well,
on video on
yeah,
demand or in theaters, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
like certain movies they can release. I mean, like Tenet. I don't think Tenet's going to be released on VOD. Like Black Widow, they've been thinking about it's going to go on Disney Plus, but they won't make any money from. Well, they will make money, but they won't make as much money as it would going in to theater. But I mean, that's any movie. What other movies are coming out? What's it
There's
called? Bill and what's it called?
Bill and Ted's.
Bill and Ted.
Shoot, I forget. That's the third movie though.
Is it? I thought it was the second one. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the third one. Like Wonder Woman 84. There's I think like A Quiet Place. There's No Time to Die, the Daniel Craig's last James Bond movie.
Oh, that's his last one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think Top Gun got delayed.
Yes, Top Gun got
Top Gun
delayed
Maverick.
to July, next year's July. So
Yeah, so everything's getting delayed. So like these studios want to make sure that they're going to be able to like get as much money as they were initially thinking they'd be able to from these movies, and right now they wouldn't be able to. Like even putting something on a streaming service,
it's not going to do as well.
like
It's not.
With the streaming service, it's all about subscriptions.
Yes.
And so I feel like the vast majority of people already have Disney Plus. I don't or anything, but like
I mean,
so
nothing's out yet, so why even?
Yeah, no, yeah, but like so many people have Disney Plus. It's only like what, like $6.99 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
and there's nothing really on it besides all their old stuff and some of the remakes and like Star Wars and all that. And now they're finally putting X-Men on there. But like, how does that streaming service work? Like, so if they buy Disney Plus or buy Netflix, do these movies get paid in some little amount, or because I don't understand really the streaming service that much. But like Netflix, Netflix pays the movie. They pay the director, the producers, or whoever, or the studios of those movies to have on Netflix, and those subscriptions that every month pay for Netflix, so Netflix can make money to buy more movies. I think that's how that works, but I don't know how that would work with Disney, because Disney has multiple people that they need to pay.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's all about word of mouth and publicity. That's something that a movie would bring you for that streaming service, and then the subscribers are ultimately what matter. But so many people already have Disney Plus. I feel like that the new people subscribing to potentially watch Black Widow wouldn't be as much. And I could be wrong, because I know a lot of people did unsubscribe after The Mandalorian was over and canceled their subscription, but ultimately we don't know. I think like, and I'm sure we'll talk about this kind of like later in this episode, but like that's kind of one of the things why AT&T and HBO Max are like made Warner Bros. Like release Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, is because they need
something big.
They needed something big for HBO Max, which is their new streaming service, to be able to compete with all the other things, and so that was their ace in the hole.
Yeah.
So.
The next thing that we're going to be talking about is Thor: Love and Thunder is starting shooting the beginning of next year. I mean, I like Thor Ragnarok. I don't like the first two Thors. I don't know about you. I like the first Thor. The second one I really don't like. I think it's very boring. But the one thing I'm not really sure about when it comes to Thor: Love of Thunder is Natalie Portman's return. I don't buy. So the biggest problems with the first two films is that I didn't buy Thor and Natalie Portman's relationship in that film. I just didn't buy them, and so having her return in the fourth one and like following her role in the comics, I mean, they didn't really do a whole lot with her character, and they abandoned her character in the third one. So it's like it feels out of place, and it's like I don't really know if I should care if she's coming back, or like what are they gonna do to make me interested in her character? Because I don't really care about her character, even though they really tried hard in the first two, but their chemistry didn't make any sense. Like, because she just falls in love with a guy that she hit with her car. That's basically it. And she basically thought he was crazy throughout the whole entire film, and she just falls in love with him. It's like, it makes no sense. And he broke her heart multiple times. And so, yeah, for me, I don't know. I don't know. What about you?
For me personally, I'm not all that interested in like the MCU, like with what they have like coming up in Phase 4. Like kind of like with Endgame was kind of where I was like, okay, they kind of like the MCU is kind of like peaked, and so that's kind of like where I'll check out. And if there's a movie that comes out that interests me, like okay, sure, I'll check it out. But other than that, like I'm not really interested. Personally, I haven't been a fan of where they've taken Thor's character overall, like especially like with Endgame and like Fat Thor and everything.
Well, I mean, so with the MCU, it's supposed to be more light-hearted, so it's like set in this light world, and so this is what's going to come up with in our future talk. What we're going to talk about after this is that the MCU's universe is so light-hearted that Thor, like, because Thor in the comic books and Thor in his two first movies are supposed to be more serious and like godlike, and like talking about like, just like all these words that rhyme, and like, I don't know, like Shakespeare talk, whatever. It just doesn't mash up. It's like with the DCEU. So the DCU has all these dark movies, and next they try to add comedy and make it light too, and it just doesn't match up, go together. That's with the Thor films. They just don't go with this world, so it just really doesn't make any sense. But I can understand why you think that.
Yeah, like for me, it's just, and I'm sure we'll talk about DC in a little bit, I'm sure, and kind of like their direction and Warner Bros. And all their studio interference. But with like Thor, it's kind of one of those things where like they're not even like with the new direction they took him in. I thought he was solid in Infinity War. I thought they did a good job with him there. But I didn't really like him because obviously you mentioned like the MCU is, they try to be much more lighthearted, which is obviously true. But like for me, it's just like they don't even, in a way,
do anything with his character. They try to develop his character and stuff.
Again, like with the MCU, as like time has gone on, they've become like they care less and less about the comics.
Okay.
And that's like one of the things where it's like they're like, okay, people like humor, they want to laugh, they like jokes, they like lighthearted stuff, and that's what critics have essentially become adjusted and programmed to. And so they're like, okay, let's keep making movies in that type of tone, and that's the type of tone that people have come to expect comic book movies to be like, which is like when you look at like some of the best stories in comic books, some of the all-time great stories, they're very dark stories. But the MCU has obviously like very much gone away from that. And you'll even see critics, which I hate. Like I don't like listen to critics like at all from like their reviews or like critic scores or Rotten Tomatoes or anything. Like for me, it's just like,
oh, half of them are bots and like paid for. Half of those people are paid to say whatever. So.
But like I remember when Dune is another movie that's directed by Denis Villeneuve. That's coming out. I think it's still on schedule to come out like in this December, but it'll most likely get moved.
It probably will.
But like
it'll be like May.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with that. But I remember when they released the first stills for that movie and the first like images, and there were like critics and people in the media who were complaining about, where's the color and where's the fun, and like why does it look so joyless? And it's like, not every movie's supposed to be all colorful and fun. It's not about you just having a good time, and that's what so many critics have gotten the mentality of.
And that's like with horror movies, which is one of my favorite subjects. And so horror movies just became more dumb and trying to, and like literally, like basically any horror movie, like it's funny. Like it, even though they're not trying to be funny, they're funny, and they're not supposed to be. And so, like that's like, and so, but critics like somehow like that movie, like even like a movie came out like Annabelle or like Chucky, it did so well. It's like, but it wasn't scary. It wasn't what I was supposed to expect. I was expecting horror. I wasn't expect to laugh, and so. But yeah, I can understand. I mean, Dune is the trying to think of it. It's like critics call it the ripoff of Star Wars, and so.
It actually did come before Star Wars, the original, like the book that is based off of, and George Lucas, it actually like served as a lot of inspiration for Star Wars. But yeah, essentially it is very like a Star Wars like movie. It's Star Wars-esque.
Who's it made by? Who's the studio behind it?
Warner Bros.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess speaking of them, we can move on to the DCU. I'll let you take the control. I'll let you take the wheel.
Yeah. So, I guess that's kind of a good segue. We were just talking about critics and expectations and like being lighthearted. So, when the DCU started off, obviously it started off with Man of Steel, and I believe it was sometime between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, Warner Bros. Essentially asked like Christopher Nolan and David Goyer, basically the guys who wrote the Dark Knight trilogy, to make a Superman movie. And so David Goyer and Christopher Nolan wrote a script for a Superman movie, and then Christopher Nolan chose Zack Snyder to direct it. And so obviously Man of Steel came out to like kind of like mixed reviews. They weren't like bad, but they were kind of mixed, and very much stems from that in and of itself. It stems from a lot of people don't really understand Superman, and like a lot of people like call it like a dark movie. It's really not a dark movie. It's like, well,
it's darker than the ones that we've seen. But
sure, yeah. Like, but like in terms of like it actually like being dark. Like
it's a real life scenario, which I mean I actually like Man of Steel, and so if an alien came out and like we started having an invasion, I feel like this would be something. If you were be able to describe it, I think they did a great job to show how the world would go through this, and so like in fights like with the final act, the biggest complaint about that movie is that actual civilians died, and so in a real life scenario, hundreds of people would have got hurt or killed, and so not every movie, it's not going to have like a fully happy ending. So
no, yeah, but like so many people like very much have their perception of Superman based off of Christopher Reeve. Now Christopher Reeve is like accurate to the Silver Age Superman, but he's not really accurate to like modern age comics, like post-crisis with like John Byrne's Man of Steel run or Dan Jurgens' run in the 90s, or like all the comics that like were big inspirations for Man of Steel, like Superman Earth 1 and Birthright and et cetera, et cetera. So you look at like Man of Steel, a lot of people obviously did complain that, oh, it's too dark, Superman acts too dark, but like you kind of mentioned, like it's a comic book movie that takes itself seriously, and Superman himself wasn't dark, it was just the world around him, which you kind of alluded to. But people were complaining that, oh, he doesn't smile all that often, like, oh, why does Superman kill Zod? Which, I mean, Superman, first off, he
didn't want to, but if you watch it closely, he didn't want to.
Yeah, no, first off, like within the context of the movie, what other way was there? There was no other way to stop Zod. Zod himself said, either you die or I do.
And like, he was about to kill a family, so he's trying to he was trying to make a decision. So
No, yeah,
I
but
mean,
even then, like there's even
but
precedent to what's happened not only in comics during John Byrne's Man of Steel run, but also in Superman 2. Like Superman literally takes Zod's powers away, breaks
yeah,
his hand, and basically throws him down a ditch to essentially die, and then like kind of smiles about it with Lois when Zod doesn't even have his powers anymore.
mhm.
So, like Superman, like people saying Superman would never kill. Superman has killed in comics. There's a precedent for it in the live action movies.
Yeah.
Um, John Byrne, like I kind of mentioned, he's like, in my opinion, he's probably the second best Superman writer in terms of modern age Superman, behind only Dan Jurgens. He kind of mentioned how one of the reasons he stopped writing Superman comics is because um, how to best put this? They basically said that we don't exactly like what you're doing because of the fact that there's essentially two Supermen now. Like they basically said there's the Superman that you're writing,
Mhm. And the
and
Superman that we like.
which is basically, and what he was doing I thought was great. He basically brought Superman into the modern era, basically delved into the actual human side and delved into the actual character of Superman.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to say the studio, but the publicists, I guess you could say, they essentially told him there's your Superman, and then there's the licensed Superman,
Okay. Yeah.
which essentially the licensed Superman is the Superman that they advertise, the Superman that they view as an icon who's always smiling and always happy all the time, which isn't actually like really accurate to Superman. Like
Hmm.
even go watch Superman the animated series. Superman has some incredibly dark moments, and not just that, but like Justice League the animated series and Justice League Unlimited.
Hmm.
So people's like very surface level understanding of Superman came into play in terms of Man of Steel not getting a great reception, and then you go on to Batman v Superman. So obviously, I don't think you're a huge fan of it, and which we can talk about. We can have that discussion now and like gripes at you like that. So personally, I think it's one of the best comic book movies ever. Let me just give some background
Hmm.
towards BVS. So a lot of people said that they were rushing by making BVS, but
Yeah.
that's actually not true. That's
No,
actually like the,
it's sort of.
okay. Well, here's the thing. People were very much viewed Warner Bros. And their new cinematic universe in the DCEU through the lens of the MCU, but that's not what they were trying to do. They were trying to make Zack Snyder was making like a 5-movie arc. He was making a 5-movie saga more similar to Lord of the Rings than to the MCU. He was going
Mhm.
to have Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and 3 Justice League movies. It's like you don't have to have solo movies for all these different characters. It's similar
Yeah.
to like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, where it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't get a solo movie before he showed up in Episode 4, and he's got all this backstory and all this history about the Clone Wars and history between Darth Vader and all that. So a lot of people view, then this narrative started very early, so a lot of people just accept this as fact, but they weren't rushing. Now Warner Bros. Themselves wanted to catch up to the success of the MCU, but Zack Snyder with BVS was
Mhm.
saying, I'm not trying to make a Marvel type universe. I'm trying to make I'm doing a 5-movie arc that's centered around Superman.
And that's why they moved on without him with Justice League, because they wanted an MCU movie.
Mm-hmm.
But see when you compare like Star Wars and like Obi-Wan not getting his own movie before we liked him in Episode 4, the difference between the DCU movies and like that, and trying to set and like for example like Avengers. All right, I think that's a fair thing to do, is compare Justice League and the Avengers. Some of these characters didn't get their own films. I mean, some of them popped up, like Black Widow, but she wasn't really in it. Hawkeye, he didn't really get his character treated the right way. But the difference between those two is that is good writing versus just trying to make a movie. And so, and one studio didn't really bother, and the other studio is kind of there. He let them do whatever he wants, but they kind of were like, there's like, hey, we want a little bit of this, but we'll let you continue on with your thing. But like, so they were like Warner Brothers were on like Snyder's butt a lot than Paramount, or I think, or was it Disney that had the rights to Marvel before the Avengers?
I think it was Paramount, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so but I mean
No,
like
yeah, but Zack Snyder dealt with a lot of studio interference on BVS because, and that's why we got the theatrical cut, the 2.5 hour theatrical cut versus the Ultimate Edition, which I think is like a great movie with the 3 hour Ultimate Edition.
I have it in my closet. It's been a while since I watched it, and I don't know. I mean, like it's like get it right the first time, so you don't have, because the ultimate cut should be something like to add a little bit more of that goodness. It shouldn't. It's like with Star Wars. You shouldn't have to go watch the Clone Wars to understand the movies. The Clone Wars should have been like an extra thing. It's like, okay, make the movies, make the trilogy good first, then add in the TV show to add a little bit more of that goodness to like of that stuff that you like. And so
here's the thing though, the 3 hour Ultimate Edition is the original movie. That's the movie he made, and then the 2.5 hour movie was what basically they cut out. So imagine with Endgame, we got a 3 hour movie in Endgame. And so Disney, for whatever reason, said, okay, no, we wanted this to be 2.5 hours to get more showings.
Okay.
And so they then cut out like 30 minutes of the movie. That's what that is. The 2.5 hour cut is not the original movie. That's just a chopped up version of the movie, which I don't think is good. Like the first time I watched that, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. I watched it. I think I've seen it twice. I don't think it's a good movie, because it has a lot of plot holes. You cut out so much important storytelling. Superman as a character very much suffers because you cut out, so much of his character development. And then there's so much going on in BVS. So BVS is structured like a 5-act revenge strategy. So obviously most movies and comic book movies in general just have 3 acts. BVS actually has 5 different acts. And so that's why there feels like there's so much in there. And why when you chop things up, say you take a little bit of Superman out here, and you take out, a little bit here, and, you take out the Steppenwolf scene here, and you take out, part of the nightmare scene or whatever, like all of that. And especially like even the beginning, it gets off to a really rough start in the theatrical cut because the Africa scene doesn't make sense because of how chopped up it is. And so you take out all that and you still have like, a lot of those scenes in there, then it just feels like they just try to put in as many scenes as possible. But like everything I think of the Ultimate Edition gets, I guess, like concluded. Now, like, I guess before we like get into like Justice League and the studio interference and like what Warner Bros. Tried to do and all that, as well as like how different the Snyder Cut's going to be from the theatrical cut. Like, hey, if you've got any problems with BVS and like any complaints, like potentially you could like, throw them at me and I could see if I can, clear those up for you.
Okay. Well, the 2 complaints I have is is Doomsday and Lex Luthor's son. So like even with the Ultimate Edition cut, those 2 villains, let's just talk about Lex Luthor's son, I guess. Author, I can't remember his name.
Alexander.
It's
basically he's just like Lex Luthor Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep going.
Even with the edition cut, it doesn't really add anything to his character. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, they add certain scenes about how he messes with Superman and Batman, but it doesn't really it doesn't justify as like why. It doesn't really justify that much why he's doing this. I mean, he's basically trying to show, hey, if you can make a god bleed, like I can't remember the name of the quote. Oh, from Iron Man 2, if you can make a god bleed,
people will cease to believe in him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what he's trying to do, but he doesn't prevail. He doesn't show they don't show it completely.
All right. So here, let me that's fair. Let me give you a quick little history on Lex Luthor. So like I mentioned it earlier in this episode, so John Byrne is the guy who kind of reinvented Lex Luthor and brought him into the modern age. So back before 1986, so between Lex Luthor's creation in 1940 all the way to 1986, before John Byrne's run, Lex Luthor was oftentimes portrayed as kind of like a mad scientist, and so it's only like that when John Byrne came around that he kind of, I guess you could say, made him that suave businessman that we kind of think of him today. Like you think of like Clancy Brown's Lex Luthor in like Superman the animated series and Justice League the animated series, like the Bruce Timm universe,
Hmm.
which is still my favorite interpretation of the character. But like up until then, he was kind of portrayed as like a mad scientist, and so um, kind of what they went with this is they took a Lex Luthor from Superman Birthright. So in Superman Birthright, written by Mark Waid, it kind of explores as Lex Luthor as kind of a guy who's crazy, who's a little eccentric, and that's he's got like long red hair. He's like too smart for his own good. He's like a younger guy, and that's where they kind of based this interpretation of Lex Luthor on, like a comic accurate Superman Birthright Lex Luthor, who was kind of eventually going to become kind of like more so classic Lex Luthor as time went on. And so Lex Luthor in comics and in BVS, this is where his motivation lies. He has major daddy issues, like what he says in the movie. He says, um, "No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from daddy's fists and abominations." Like his dad abused him when he was younger, and so he blames God for that because he says, "Okay, if God is all powerful, then why didn't you save it?" So like if you're all powerful, that means you're not all good, or if you're all good and you wanted to save me, that means you weren't powerful enough to save me. And so he projects that onto Superman, like in his view on God, and he says, okay, you know, I hate God, and Superman is basically like, I guess, a physical embodiment of God in a way, that I'm projecting, um, and I'm projecting that view of God onto him. So that's why he hates Superman. And he wants to expose him as a fraud in a way. And so that's kind of like if you go and rewatch the rooftop scene with Lex and Superman, he kind of like explains his whole motivation there in a way.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of my thing. Like if you still not a fan of Lex, that's obviously totally fine.
Hmm.
But like just to know that's like where they're going with this character. And now for your other big complaint, you said so like what would be your big complaint with Doomsday?
I think they did it too soon. And that's again, they're trying to do Justice League. And that's the biggest problem if you're not. And that's the thing with the DCU. That's fine if you want to make these big films, but it's kind of you're moving, like the pacing is completely off if you combine all these movies together. Superman's more like it starts slow and it ends like on a quick pace. So and the and that's where this basically film picks up. It picks up quick and throughout the film it's slow. So like the pacing is all over the place if you try to combine all these movies together. So with Doomsday coming in and intervening, it's like, oh, okay, cool, you killed off Superman. I get you want to do the Justice League thing, but like I don't really. It's like, okay, I don't like. I want more of this regular Superman, and I want to see his more like idealist. Because I like that. Because like the one thing I actually liked from this movie is the court scene. Like that's actually my favorite part about this movie is Superman just like has to deal with Earth not like accepting him, and so he's trying to and only certain people like him, and so like I like him dealing with this effect of the world trying to come after him, and so it's like, okay, maybe you should build more off of that, but no, they kill him off, and it's like, okay, Dark Superman, we want to do that, but you never really set it up to make him, get to that point. It's like, okay, we got Doomsday, let's kill off Superman, and Wonder Woman also pops out out of nowhere. That's also a little another complaint. And that's another complaint about this film is how does like Lex Luthor know about Bruce Wayne as Batman and Superman and like Clark Kent as Superman? I think they explain it, but I don't exactly remember. But but if I can remember correctly, he just knows. Like at least in the theatrical cut, he just knows from my memory.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that Lex Luthor is the smartest man in the world. So that's something that even happens in comics too, where Lex Luthor discovers the um, secret identities of the Justice League, but doesn't tell anyone, doesn't say anything. And so that, like I said, he is the smartest man in the world, and so that's kind of like part of like how he knows. But like regards to like Doomsday, so for me, like I said, Zack Snyder was doing a five movie arc for Superman, and so like remember, and you even mentioned this about like with the courtroom scene, like this is a world that hasn't accepted Superman yet, and so it was that whole, it's kind of like that whole concept of greater love. Like greater love has no one than this than to lay down one's life for one's friend. It's like the people are uncertain about him. Some people, he's a very polarizing figure. Some people love him, some people hate him, but then you see that, you know, he sacrifices himself and, you know, gives his life to save the world, and they like see that, then that ultimately causes them to be like, oh, this is a guy who's here for good. And Zack Snyder was actually following Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey for this, and that how soon obviously we would see this in, you know, we will see this in 2021 with Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, but how it's like the rebirth of Superman. The world has accepted him, and now Superman is confident and sure of his place as kind of, I guess you could say, like mankind's protector. Honestly, like, and like you said, like it kind of like sets up the Justice League, and it honestly realistically causes the Justice League to need to be formed. Like establishing the Justice League as a, you know, a way to need to fill Superman's shoes is honestly kind of like a huge tribute to the character, and that obviously doesn't really happen much in the comics. But I think that like being like, okay, the most powerful man in the world is gone right now, and so there's an incoming threat coming. You know, Superman's death is what ultimately causes Steppenwolf to end up coming to Earth, because now he knows that, you know, Superman's gone. Yeah. And so once again, this honestly, as someone who loves the death of Superman and Dan Jurgens' run in the 90s with the whole death and rebirth of Superman, I'd honestly say that from a storytelling perspective, what's Superman's death in Batman v Superman, once again from a storytelling perspective, holds more weight than it did in the comics.
And like that's like the biggest like I probably should have been more clear, but like so it's like the death. So if you like when we killed off Superman, BVS, so like again going back to the court scene, people hated Superman, they didn't want him here. But at the end of this movie, everyone praised him, even though he did stop being a monster, but this monster was created by him. So thinking about it, these people should hate him even more, because if he never came to Earth, this would have never happened. So they should have hated him more, and there shouldn't have been this big memorial, even for like Justice League. Like you said, Steppenwolf came because Superman was gone. Even bigger reasoning for people to hate Superman. And so like I get why they did it, but I think that's the biggest problem with this film. They were just moving too fast instead of, you know, do these little spin-offs, or like just do these solo films first, then do the big films.
Well, my thing with that would be, first off, like the people of Earth, like obviously don't know Steppenwolf is coming because Superman's gone. That's just the reason why Steppenwolf is coming. And then obviously Lex is the one who creates Doomsday, not Superman.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, like Superman killed Zod. I mean, Superman should have. But again, like it's Zod. Okay, like so it's Zod. Superman's the reason why Zod came to Earth. He's the reason why Zod is still like the reason. Again, I don't know why Superman didn't take his body out, because I don't know if he knew that he could be created into Doomsday or anything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Like no one knows that he was, you know, created into that, and like the people of Earth don't know that Zod was turned into Doomsday either.
I guess, yeah.
So that's like one of those things. And even then, like if you wanted to do that, then it's like, does the world, you know, does the world hate Iron Man or something? Because of like, you know, how many villains he caused to be created within the MCU. You know, it's kind of like that, where it's like some things are out of your control.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tony Stark is a very different character. He's much more of a jerk than Superman is. We obviously know that, and so that him being a jerk is kind of like obviously.
But we do see people hate him. I mean, Civil War, people start blaming him for the Age of Ultron and all that.
Yeah,
and
but
so,
even in like say Superman Earth 1, where it's like that's a Superman origin story. It's one of my favorite Superman origin stories. Basically, Superman helped save the world, and then people are mixed about him, and they're like, they have mixed feelings. Some people are like, oh yeah, this guy's awesome. Some people are like, oh, I don't trust him. He's too powerful. And other people are in the middle and like, oh, let's wait and see, what this guy does. And that's essentially what happens with Superman in BVS. And then basically once he threw out the 3-volume, it's a 3-volume comic. And as the comic progresses, then more and more people accept Superman. And that's very similar to what happens in BVS. So. Yeah. Do you have any other like major complaints about like say BVS, or would you want to like move on to say like Justice League and studio interference and what Warner Bros. Was trying to do?
I mean, there's like minor, like little complaints, like Lois Lane. She felt a little pointless in the film. She just felt like a danger. She just felt like there to be like a point of Superman saving her and all that.
Well, I definitely do disagree with that because Lois Lane is ultimately the one who discovers Luthor's plan. And is ultimately the one who like basically helps Superman,
And she's much youth, and that's the one thing I like about the Ultimate Cut is that she's more fleshed out in that because like there's like at the beginning of the film when you watch the theatrical cut, she's just there. It's like, oh, why are you here? But in the Ultimate Cut, she's like falling up the lead, and like it's supposed to be like I think led to Lex Luthor. Again, I haven't really watched this in a while. I'm just only like going this off base of memory, so. But yeah, like it does. So there's certain parts like I like, but I wish studios would just stay out of the way. It's like, okay, fine, if you want more, but it's like, who cares about more showing times? I mean, like, is it? So that's the thing I don't understand. So is it showing times during the day, or is it showing times overall?
Showing times overall, because the shorter a movie is, the more times you can show it during the day.
Okay.
Say, because obviously there are 24 hours in a day. Say they have. A 20-hour window of showing movies. If a movie is, 2 hours, that means they can, like in one, on one screen, they can show it 10 times theoretically. But then if obviously if it's 1 hour, you could show it 20 times theoretically. So it's kind of like that concept. And so the shorter a movie is, the more, showings they get. And you're right, 100% right about that, how Lois is more fleshed out in the Ultimate Edition. Like they cut out the entire Bullet subplot. About how she goes on an investigation and like obviously she discovers that Wallace Keith didn't kill himself. She's the one who discovers about Luthor with the bullets, and he was the one who framed Superman and like discovers Luthor's plot. So like
and that's another thing I don't understand is that Superman, like the people think that Superman used bullets.
Okay, so the reason why is because they burn the bodies. I'm pretty sure that's cut out of the theatrical cut.
I think it is.
Which makes it as confusing. But the Ultimate Edition has where they burn the bodies, and people don't do autopsy tests or anything on burned bodies. So they think that Superman uses heat vision and basically, smoked all the people. Okay. So that's kind of one of the reasons why.
So yeah, we can move on to Justice League. I've only seen snippets of it, so I actually have not watched the full film.
You're doing yourself a favor.
Okay, good. But I have seen certain parts that I don't exactly remember, but I remember like Steppenwolf and like somewhat at the beginning where he arrives and certain scenes in the middle with Aquaman. But
yeah, so I mean, just a little history about kind of what happened with Justice League was. After obviously they released a theatrical cut of BVS, and then there were all the complaints about it and everything, and so that caused Warner Bros. To kind of get, even more like monitor Snyder and what he was doing, even though the theatrical cut wasn't his fault. That was the studio's fault for like cutting it down, and so. What they kind of
he didn't film it. He had a family issue, didn't he? And next he left the project.
Well, with Justice League. Yeah. Not with BVS, but like because of the backlash of BVS. And so they kind of like made him compromise. I know you mentioned on your last episode kind of about like because obviously we got like the new Superman, the black suit Superman clip that he just released. And so, like, the reason why, obviously, and I know you did obviously mention, which is obviously true, is we already seen that scene because they released that as um, a deleted scene on the Blu-ray. It obviously isn't in the actual movie, but it's on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, it was a deleted scene, and the reason why it's a blue suit and now it's being changed to black in post-production is because of the fact that Warner Bros. Didn't want Snyder to do a black suit. Even after the resurrection, that's how the comics are, about how he has this whole rebirth suit, and how basically that's how he comes back. And essentially they viewed it as, and a lot of people still have this misconception about how, oh, black suit means Superman is dark, which is not true at all. It's just the color of his suit. It's his solar suit in the comics, and it doesn't mean he's dark at all. But people, and this is what the executives at Warner Bros. Thought and had the mindset of that, oh, he's wearing a darker suit. We don't want that. That means like the movie is dark. And so much of the complaints about BVS were that, oh, the movie's too dark, which isn't.
No,
really,
it wasn't the complaint. It was just messy.
No, obviously the theatrical cut was messy, but the biggest complaint that you will see on almost all reviews is that it's too dark, and that it's like, oh, it's gloomy and it's joyless. That no, like trust me, I've
okay.
checked. And that's
well,
like,
I guess with Batman and what he did, yeah.
That's the most consistent complaint with regards to, it's like the tone. Even though that's really not a valid complaint of a movie, the tone can be like movie being too dark, and especially when you consider like they're Superman comics that are far darker than what happened in BVS. But we won't go there right now. But basically, Justice League. So Zack Snyder had to make a ton of compromises. Like, do you know what Steppenwolf looks like in Batman v Superman?
Was he in Batman v Superman?
He's in the Ultimate Edition. They cut him out. He's at the very end where like Lex is communicating with him shortly after like Superman
I
died.
don't remember that one. I need to, I'll look up that scene because I actually don't remember it.
Yeah, you can look up that scene, or you can look up pictures. They like look up Batman v Superman Steppenwolf. And so obviously we got the Steppenwolf you got in the theatrical cut of Justice League, but the Steppenwolf we'll be getting in Zack Snyder's Justice League in 2021 will be that BVS design, that original design, because they made him compromise on that because they thought it was too scary. And so obviously the theatrical cut was only 2 hours.
Yes, now I remember. All right. Yeah. I like that version than the movie one.
Yeah. So they thought they viewed it as like too scary, so they made him change it. But thankfully he's changing it back, and we're essentially getting like a no compromise version of his cut of Justice League. So his cut will end up being 4 hours long, compared to the theatrical cut being only 2 hours.
And this is the biggest complaint of mine, is that it's not going to be connected at all to whatever's coming up, which makes sense because you're going to restart all over anyway. It's like, okay, why even bother? It's like, okay, I can understand why you're going to do it. It's like, oh, money, yay, cool. But it's like, why do it? Because all you're going to do, if you mess it up, you're just going to make these people hate the characters even more. And so you're going to hate, and so like, why not just scrap all this and like have it and like start all over with the Batman that's coming out, and next do it and bring back Zack Snyder so he can actually do what he wanted to do. And so but scrap all of this and have it, have it all cohesive and have it all together instead of, doing it for the money. And that's why I see it as, it's just, they're doing it for the money. At least the studio, not for. I don't even know. Is the studio even having their name on it? Because I know there was like some big complaint about Zack Snyder could get sued if his name wasn't on it or whatever.
Well, yeah. So I mean, basically, I'll just like a quick kind of like recap. So like, with regards to Zack Snyder's name and everything, so his name is obviously on the theatrical cut, but essentially only like 30 minutes of the footage of the 2 hours of the theatrical cut is Zack Snyder footage. So Fabian Wagner, who's the cinematographer for everything that's like Zack Snyder did, he came out and said that the theatrical cut only had 10% of what he and Zack Snyder shot. So it's going to be like a completely different movie. Like Zack Snyder has said, his assembly cut was 5 hours long.
Is he going to keep some of the Justice League stuff, or no?
I mean, the Justice League stuff that like was, because some of the stuff is his footage.
Well, yeah.
So
But,
like, so
I mean, like
obviously,
the movie overall, like, is he going to keep those scenes and add to it, or is he going to make it?
so it's a completely different cut. So obviously,
Okay,
he's not using
yeah.
any Joss Whedon footage. Like the 30 minutes or so of footage that is his will most likely be in his cut.
What was his footage? What film?
So it's like all cut throughout. Some like there are YouTube videos that break it down. So if you want to look up Zack Snyder Justice League footage or like Snyder footage versus like Whedon footage, and you can like find a lot of videos on that. That'll help explain it. Also, if you want to find more information about kind of just the journey to get the Snyder cut as well as like how different it'll be, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Fandom Rant Radio. Here, it's basically my brother Steven and I. We went on with Ryan, uh, who is in a way the head of Fandom Rant, and we basically did a 6-part limited series of Journey to the Snyder Cut. So
I saw. Yeah, I listened to that. That was. You guys made a lot of good points in that. And if you want to bring some points of that they talk about in that as well, that'd be actually pretty good.
Yes, because like with regards to characterizations, obviously Superman is not going to have any CGI mouth or anything like that. Obviously, like we've been going for over an hour here, so I don't want to like go too long and things like that.
I mean, I've done longer stuff and had to do certain things, but this is pretty good. I like where this is going.
Yeah, but yeah, no. If you're fine going, I can go into more detail in that case. Basically, like Batman's going to be like his characterization is going to be totally different.
Okay.
He's obviously like Ben Affleck was out of shape during reshoots, and so he was obviously overweight, like, and they try to make him all jokey and everything, which doesn't work for
his
Batman.
character. Yeah.
And so part of he's gonna have like his redemption arc, where obviously the death of Superman in Batman v Superman is what causes him to become, overcome his cynicism and everything and stop killing. Mm-hmm. Superman's death is what causes him to do that. And then
it's like Arrow with the CW Arrow with Tommy, and so
yeah, and so basically, and he's gonna kind of have like a redemption arc where he feels guilt over what he did in BVS. Mm-hmm. And that's gonna be in the Snyder Cut. That's gonna be part of his character arc. I know a lot of people don't really like Ezra Miller's Flash, but his Flash is going to act totally different in the Snyder Cut. He's not going to be so jokey. He's not going to be making jokes about brunch and things like that.
That's what I heard in that, and that's like certain scenes I saw. It's like, why, like there's death situations. Why are you making jokes? Even in the CW Flash. I mean,
Great Gustin.
Great Gus. I'm not even gonna bother trying to say names, but like his character, he makes jokes, but it's not necessarily in like tragic scenes that he's supposed to be serious. I mean, I prefer his Flash over Ezra Miller's Flash, to be honest.
So fun fact: Zack Snyder directed the Flash scene that's in Suicide Squad.
There was a Flash.
There was a Flash cameo. He actually arrests Captain Boomerang. He's Flash in the Zack Snyder cut isn't going to be, I just push people and run away. That's not what he's going to be like.
Okay, cool.
He's going to be much more serious. He's obviously going to probably be he is going to be more lighthearted. He's probably going to be the comedic relief of the Justice League, but he's not going to be anywhere near as, he essentially was acting like a buffoon. Even his running style will be different. I know a lot of people didn't like his running form. I didn't either, but his running form will be different in the Snyder Cut. And so, but yeah, Zack Snyder directed that scene. He's all like confident, and he's like, in the Suicide Squad cameo, and he's all like, no honor among thieves, eh? And then like basically just takes him out. So it's like a short little cameo. But yeah, we're kind of getting obviously like kind of like an uncompromised version that follows along Man of Steel and BVS, and and completely different scenes. It's essentially going to be 3.5 hours of unseen footage.
Okay.
Like, so that it's going to be literally a completely different movie when you have like 3.5 hours. It's essentially going to be as long as like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That's what this movie is going to be. The extended cut of that. And so I know you obviously did mention about how, Zack Snyder did make comments recently about how like, it's not connected, and like, it's kind of like
Which I can.
like an Elseworld thing. But here's my take on that. So obviously we'll find out more stuff about what DC's plans are for the future at DC Fandom, which is an event on August 22nd, where it's like a 24-hour live stream where DC is basically, they're having announcements. It's essentially a Comic-Con for DC, where they've got everything from animation to video games to TV shows to live action. They've got all the announcements. They're going to show tons of trailers and footage and a bunch of cool stuff like that. And so something that I know you mentioned about like Robert Pattinson's Batman, I think Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to be like disconnected from like the other like DC main continuity DCEU movies. If you even look at kind of like the tone and the vibe that Matt Reeves is setting up, it's kind of like a noir type movie. Pattinson's Batman wouldn't really fit in with the comic book aesthetic, like the mythological, like I said, like aesthetic that like Zack Snyder has kind of like set up for the DCEU.
Yeah. And
so I think that's going to be its own thing, similar to Joker. And I think that DC, something that they're going to do, and this is something that they've hinted at, is the multiverse. So obviously we know that, obviously if you know much about DC, you know that they kind of have the multiverse, like tons of different versions of these characters. You look at DC animation and you see like they have like 6 different Batmans in animation right now. That's part of the multiverse because there are different, universes and everything. There are different Earths. And so because of that, you have Robert Pattinson's Batman, and you could potentially have Ben Affleck's Batman. You could have the more so family-friendly, more so humorous type stuff, which is obviously the direction that Warner Bros. Tried to go after, Zack Snyder kind of left, which he's obviously kind of like back now. We'll see how much of his vision he ends up getting to do, whether he ends up getting to do Justice League 2 and 3, which I think is honestly a real possibility, but that would be separate from, say, like Shazam and Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be in continuity with those movies, but that's kind of essentially his movie. So like Man of Steel, BVS, and honestly you legitimately could include Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman in those because they follow up perfectly with Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Is even like Suicide Squad's supposed to be separate from this original Suicide Squad they came out with?
Yeah, James Gunn's Suicide Squad will most likely be separate, and
because
that's totally
new
fine.
cast and all that. So
yeah, so you are obviously that's something that DC has over Marvel. Marvel has obviously, and a lot of people are kind of expecting DC to be more like Marvel, but they don't have to. You have a universe where Marvel has like one universe.
They have the multiverse, but it's not as. But like, they haven't touched it yet, so they can't do anything.
Regardless of what they're doing in live action, they have like one version of each character, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas you obviously saw Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. He has, he's different from Jared Leto's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
He's not part of the DCEU, and I think that's what they'll do with Robert Pattinson's Batman. That's what they don't have to connect things. They can just focus on making a lot of great movies. They can focus on making a lot of good live action TV shows. They can obviously say, okay, Zack Snyder, you have your corner of the universe where, you have Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then potentially, if that's really successful, you can end up doing Justice League 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you obviously potentially have spin-offs of that, which is kind of what he was going to do with his universe. It wasn't just going to be like literally 5 movies, but it was going to be, those were the main 5 movies. And then you have like little spin-offs, obviously, such as Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, and potentially, who knows, a Ben Affleck solo movie and things like that. And so, or like a Deathstroke movie, a lot of things along those lines. And who knows, I know there was a little report that came out, and Jay Oliva, who's worked with Zack Snyder on Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and his cut of Justice League, he has worked in DC animation for like 20 years. He directed The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. He directed Flashpoint Paradox, Justice League War, has directed episodes on Young Justice, and just worked on and storyboarded a bunch of other DC animated movies. And so he has been in the animated universe of DC for a long time, and he's obviously been very much so like, yes, Zack Snyder 100% understands DC characters, because some people think he doesn't, but he's been one of those huge advocates, like, yeah, he 100% understands like Superman and Batman, etc. And so he he essentially recently hinted at like, oh yeah, what if you do both live action and animation for different parts of the Snyderverse and Zack Snyder's kind of his little universe. Whether it be little spin-offs, whether you continue with Justice League movies in animation, I don't know. But he's obviously kind of like an expert in that field. Jay Oliva is, and so that's the future for DC. I would honestly say is a lot brighter than Marvel's. Obviously, not to hate on Marvel or anything, but I think they've kind of peaked with Endgame. Whereas
Yeah.
the DCEU has been like kind of like all over the place. Obviously, personally, I think they had a really strong start with Man of Steel and the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, but obviously perception wasn't with them because they released the theatrical cut. And then you had Suicide Squad, which obviously David Ayer has a cut of Suicide Squad that's very different from the theatrical cut. So I hope that Warner Bros. Releases that too.
Yeah.
And then obviously you had Wonder Woman, which kind of put things kind of like sort of on the right track to people's perception of the DC universe, and then Justice League completely like messed everything up.
Yeah.
So you kind of have you've kind of had an up and down universe with regards to Warner Bros. Being so reactionary. They've been like, oh, people are mad about this. Okay, let's try to change this. And oh, people are mad about this now. Let's kind of like move away from that.
Yeah, and that's where things go wrong with the DCU. Is that they try to please every single like for example, The Rise of Skywalker. People were upset about The Last Jedi, so AJ Abrams came back. It's like, okay, so what can we do to please people? We got to please some people. Okay, it's like, okay, we'll take the Force from The Last Jedi. Some people actually really like that. Okay, it was people that didn't like Rose. Let's get her out of there. Okay. People wanted Rey to be more training. Okay. People wanted Rey to be somebody. All right, Palpatine. So it's like, that's like the biggest problem is like, try not to please people because all these movies are supposed to be from your vision and what you want to see, and so show what you want to show, and then add elements in the movie that can please people. And so,
No, yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. That's one of the reasons I really respect Zack Snyder and what he was doing. He's even said that like you can't make a movie, with purely the intention of pleasing other people. You have to make the movie that you want to make. And that's one of the reasons why I think his cut of Justice League is going to be pretty awesome, and especially compared to the theatrical cut, is going to blow a lot of people away. Like in his just a little snippet of like the characters that are going to be in his cut of Justice League. We're going to have Darkseid, and these are all characters that weren't in the theatrical cut. We're going to have Darkseid. We're going to have Desaad. We're going to have who's Darkseid's kind of like chief torturer. We're going to have like Green Lanterns. We're going to have Martian Manhunter. We're going to have Thanagarians, who once again like Hawkman and Hawkgirl are Thanagarians. We're going to have Ryan Choi, who is a version of he's not Ray Palmer, but he's another one of the Atoms. He's also including, I believe, obviously, like I mentioned, we have Black Suit Superman, the original design of Steppenwolf, and so like there are countless other characters that people are going to be very surprised by and wowed that are in this movie, that are in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And so one of the things that I really think that will help the DC universe, avoid studio interference by going forward is the fact that AT&T is kind of in charge, because AT&T bought Warner Bros.
Okay.
And so most of the executives who were meddling with Batman v Superman and meddling with Justice League are all gone now because they all got fired. And so Jim Lee, like I mentioned, he's kind of in charge. He's the chief creative officer of DC right now. Actually, I'm not sure if I mentioned him yet, but basically he's the chief creative officer of DC. He's my favorite comic book artist. He did like art for comic books like Batman Hush, Superman for Tomorrow, the beginning of the New 52, et cetera, et cetera. And so he is kind of like running DC now in a way. And I don't think that there will really be any studio interference. And really, like you said, like with Star Wars did with like Rise of Skywalker, which are totally right on. They were like, oh, we saw the criticisms from here and we saw the criticisms from here, and well, we didn't have a plan to begin with, so like let's just try to like take all the criticisms and make sure, and kind of mold our movie like accordingly. And with, I think, like one of the things with like Zack Snyder, he had his plan for the whole DC universe. Like he wasn't connecting things through end credit scenes like the MCU does. He was connecting things like through the movies themselves, which like say like the Flash coming back in time and like the nightmare sequence. That was supposed to be stuff that was supposed to happen in like Justice League 3, which I won't really spoil stuff and won't really get ahead with that. But basically that's like, and he was tying everything together like through the movies themselves. But yeah, I think like DC fandom could definitely end up like blowing a lot of people away from the announcements and trailers and everything that happens there. It'll give us a really good look at the future of DC and what they're planning to do. Obviously, they could make more Black Label films like Joker. They could continue on like so many different universes. And I hope it, I think the general audience is smart enough. And like, I'll ask your opinion about this. Like, do you think the general audience is smart enough to really like see all these different interpretations of characters, say like Ben Affleck's Batman and Robert Pattinson's Batman and like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and like Jared Leto's Joker, like et cetera, et cetera?
I think they are smart enough to see that, but I don't think they want that. I think because the biggest complaints is that I think they want to see one story. They want to see like they want to see all these stories come together, and so I think the way that they're doing it, and it's just going to confuse a lot more people, even more people that are just starting to get into like the DC movies, and so that's where I'm coming from. And it's like I'm trying to help these other people that are not new to the DC and trying to come into it. And so if they say, for example, they go see the Flash, or Wonder Woman, there's like, okay, I really like this. I want to see more of this. And next they go see the Batman. It's like, what is this? It's like, okay, it's like, so it's making them confused, and so it's like. But then if they get the understanding of the multiverse, then maybe they can understand, and maybe we can have some crossovers with these characters, which they probably will do, which I mean, they have the capability to do it. But I think the problem is like, that's where I'm coming from, is like, I'm fine with you guys doing the way that you want to do, like for the Snyder Cut, I'm fine with that. But you need to start things out on a solid ground and then build your way up to help the people who are just coming into the DCEU to have them have a good understanding, to know where they are at, and so then they can enjoy all these other films knowing that these are not necessarily connected. This is their own universe, this is their own timeline, and so then they can still have enjoyment.
Yeah, I think actually Jim Lee kind of ended up setting a lot of this, like the multiverse concept up back in. So are you kind of like a fan of like the CW and everything?
Yeah.
So you did see their Crisis on Infinite Earths, like the whole crossover, and like the Ezra Miller cameo and him interacting with Grant Gustin's Flash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what he was hinting at. Like, look, there could be multiple versions of these characters. Yeah. And I do think that.
But again, like I said before, I don't need a TV show to explain that to me. I should have the movies already do that. And so that's where, again, that's where I'm trying to.
And it's similar because let's say like Robert Pattinson gets a trilogy. It's similar in the way of, say, like Man of Steel and BVS and like the DCEU. Say like phase 1 of the DCEU, I'll just put that and just use that as an example. So like from Man of Steel to Justice League. And so to say those movies were, what if those movies happened at the same time as the Dark Knight trilogy? Mm-hmm. Like you could still view like you could, those are different. Like it's a separate movie. It's similar like why a lot of people are very accepting of different Batman, like Michael Keaton and Christian Bale and Ben Affleck and now Robert Pattinson. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I think people might be open to that. And like I mean, think about it though. How many people would have thought what the MCU is doing with the shared universe would have been like super successful like 20 years ago? You know what I mean? Like, do you think people would have thought like, that's going to be too hard to get people super invested in that? But like now look at like how excited people are for it. In the same way, I think that same thing could happen with the DC multiverse, being like, oh, look at all these different versions of these characters and all these different Earths and all these different continuities. You have the Snyderverse over here. You have like the main like DCEU timeline with say like Aquaman, Shazam,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 84, Birds of Prey, and the timeline continuing off of that over there. And then you have Robert Pattinson's Batman, and you have Black Label stories like the Joker, and
Yeah.
you just kind of have like.
But like the thing is, they need, if they're gonna do that, they're gonna need to have like a main universe that we're gonna stay in, but then we're gonna have all these other movies that are gonna be that they're gonna go off and do their own. That like so like because, and again, I understand where you're coming from, but like if they're gonna ever decide to bring these together, which I think they probably will, they're gonna need a main, because they're gonna need like a main universe to like just bring everyone together. It's just like, okay, like if you're not gonna like these main, if you're not gonna, and again, I think they're doing it because if you're not gonna like this universe, it's like, okay, cool, you have this universe, that's fine. But if you're gonna have, but again, like I said, with new people, it's just gonna make it confusing. And so it's like, oh, it's like say if the Batman, and like say he gets 5 movies or whatever, and Ben Affleck's Batman shows up, it's like, where were you? Like, or is this the same universe? It's like, what is happening? And so
I think something that they might try to do is use the Flash movie with Ezra Miller as a way to not set up Flashpoint, but to set up like the multiverse, and really use that movie to showcase to the general audience and people like, hey, look, there are lots of different versions of these characters, and who knows what they could explore. He could like be running through the fabric of time or something, and then he could end up seeing, oh, look, there's the world of the Dark Knight trilogy, and oh, there's the world of the CW, and oh, there's the world of Zack Snyder, or like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's the world of Christopher Reeve,
mm-hmm.
like, I think it's one of those things that like, even like Into the Spider-Verse, obviously it shows like, oh, hey, look at all these different versions of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that, and this is something that DC even does with animation, like I mentioned. They're like, they have multiple versions of characters and like multiple different continuities that run at the same time. They did have their main timeline, which was like their DCAMU, their New 52 timeline, that started with Flashpoint Paradox and ended with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. But they had movies in between there that kind of were separate, such as Batman Assault on Arkham, or like Superman Red Sun, or oh no, that was beforehand. But like they have different movies that are separate from the timeline that come out during the same time. And obviously, like, it's usually big DC fans. Like the general audience usually doesn't watch DC animated movies. But I do think that like if you introduce it the right way and set it up the right way, I think that people can and will get used to the idea of the multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, like the CW already actually did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's also makes it even more confusing. Is so, I'm trying to charge my there. Okay. I think I'm lagging. Okay. It's all good now. But like I was saying, they already did it, and so that made it even more confusing. So it's like, if they're, because they actually combined all multiverse worlds, all Earth one, like all the Earths into one, and so it's like, is it connected or is it not connected anymore? And so,
yeah, and ultimately, I think it'll depend on the execution and how they show it off. But I still think at DC Fandom, if they make an announcement of like and showcase the multiverse, I think that could be the big thing, which is obviously on August 22nd, which is like just over 3 weeks away. It's like 3 weeks from tomorrow, or well, on Saturday, when we're recording this. So it's kind of like, I do like Jim Lee did set up that Ezra Miller cameo, and I think that was a big thing because Ezra is obviously, he's the Flash for the DCEU and Grant Gustin is the Flash for the CW. Yeah. And you even hear him mention in that cameo, like, I told Victor this was possible. Who's Victor Stone? Who's Cyborg? And so that's, who knows? That could be something that they explore in the Flash movie if they have like Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg in the DCU, if they have him, um, you know, in that movie with Ezra Miller if he is in that. So ultimately, I think it'll kind of depend on
It's just the execution. And so,
yeah, the execution and them making it clear to people, hey, we're not doing what the MCU is doing. What they did was great. That's cool. You know, they have like one singular timeline in live action, but that's not what we're doing.
mhm.
You know, we don't have to be like the MCU. We are not trying to be like the MCU. We are having a multiverse because in a way, with how much Warner Bros. Has tried to course correct with regards to like their main universe, I don't think they would really be able to catch the MCU.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, if they made Zack Snyder's Justice League canon within that main timeline, and then also
Continue on.
and also like say like they released David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, and that turned out to be really good too, and continued off of that. But in the at the same time, they kind of broke away from that.
Yeah.
In a
They
way.
already continue on without them. They already decided to make the movie. They already decided to make the Joker. They already decided to make the Batman. They already decided to make Wonder Woman 2 and the Flash and all that. So they can't really turn back. And so
Yeah. So I think that this is kind of just a case of, um, you know, really showcasing that yeah, this is what we're doing. We're doing the multiverse, assuming that this is what DC decides to do.
but do they really want? The thing is that I think they didn't want to do this, but I think they're at the point. It's like people are just going to get mad at us if we just keep trying to reboot. So it's like, well, the Marvel hasn't touched their multiverse just yet. So what if we do it before they? So
Well, obviously they are doing it before Marvel and all that, but the thing is also as well that DC has DC has a much richer history and a much bigger legacy to live up
yeah,
to, and so because of that, you have all these gatekeepers. Like DC is much more iconic outside of say like the cinematic universes, um, and so people already have very much ideas of Superman that they have in their head and idea of who Batman is in their head. And so, in a way, because of that, you're not going to be able to please everyone. Whereas, say, with Marvel, so many of their characters people have no idea about. Like, no one knows about, before the MCU, no one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. Even like people like Iron Man and Captain America and, um, Ant-Man and Thor and, Black Widow and all like most if not all Marvel characters outside of Spider-Man, most people had like knew very little about.
mm-hmm.
Like before the MCU came around. Now the MCU is here and people are like, oh, I know who these characters are. But that's the thing, the MCU is their sole view of that character. That's the only, that's like all they know the character from. So whatever the MCU does with that character, no one's going to complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
But with DC, if they do something with a character people don't like, such as like Zack Snyder doing like with Batman having like a redemption arc with regards to his killing, and say with BVS, the whole point of BVS is, oh, Batman killing is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the whole point. But people still, obviously, a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people don't know that, and so because of that, some people are complaining, oh, Batman doesn't kill, blah blah blah, and obviously we haven't been able to see the conclusion of his character arc that we'll kind of see in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But you have all of those people, or the people like, oh, Superman, why isn't he smiling all the time? Why is he all mopey? Why did he kill Zod? Et cetera, et cetera. And you have all these people who have these preconceived notions of these characters and get their ideas of what these characters are from, say, Christopher Nolan's Batman, or you say like Christopher Reeve's Superman. And you have all these people who, they're never going to be satisfied. Like at least everyone isn't going to be satisfied with regards to what they do with these characters. And so I think that kind of sparked the idea of the multiverse, because even in comics, there's the multiverse. There's so many different Earths. And so kind of being like, okay, look, I don't know what conversations they had, but it might have gone down something like, hey, look, we can't please everyone. What's the best idea? To cement the fact that, hey, look, there are multiple versions of these characters. You can go and like your version, but this is all DC. Don't be hating on, one version of the character. If you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because that was something that like the DCU kind of struggled with, and why, like, in a way, like Superman and Batman, especially Superman, is held to like a higher standard than any other superhero, because like that's one of the reasons why after Justice League and like after the failure of that movie, that Henry Cavill as Superman and just the Superman as a character kind of went into limbo after Zack Snyder left, because like obviously Zack Snyder had a plan for Superman and his character, but now that with him gone at the time, back in like 2017, 2018, like they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what people wanted from the character. Like people complained that he was too dark and depressing in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and they gave like a Christopher Reeve parody in Justice League, and no one showed up to watch the movie because that movie grossed less than Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Mm.
So they're like, okay, what do we do with the character? We don't know. And so, but now I think that they're like, okay, you know what? The multiverse is the best option for us, because there's so much expectation on us for Superman, for Batman, for just all these characters. And so, cementing the idea that, hey, look, you can have your favorite version of the character, and there's this version of the character. There's the Christopher Reeve Superman, there's the Henry Cavill Superman, there's the Christian Bale Batman and the Michael Keaton Batman and the Ben Affleck Batman and now Robert Pattinson. And there are all these different versions of Joker as well. Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, Joaquin Phoenix, Jared Leto. And so I think that's something that that they can very much like be very, very successful in this next decade if they full on embrace the multiverse concept.
Yeah. I mean, oh wow, that time flies.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think we talked about basically everything. I don't know. What else is new with DC? That's basically everything.
I mean, mostly, obviously, Zack Snyder's Justice League is the big thing right now.
Yeah.
They'll most likely, I have a feeling they'll most likely release it in 6 chapters because it's so long, and then also release it as a full movie after that. To obviously get HBO Max subscriptions for at least like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimately do think it's possible. Like, and they're pouring a lot of money into it because that's the thing why I think they legitimately could continue with the Snyderverse is because of the fact that they're like, obviously the Hollywood Reporter came out with an article that said, oh, they're pouring $20 to $30 million to help him restore the things that and finish things that he hadn't been able to finish, such as additional footage from additional photography for Martian Manhunter, and restoring Steppenwolf back to his original design, and just touching up and finishing VFX.
That's the thing. Did they ever explain why he looks different in the original? Like, it's like, oh, hey, you look like that. You're Steppenwolf's son, aren't you?
No, they just like went with that. Like, it was just like they didn't really explain it. A lot of people haven't seen the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, so they don't even know Steppenwolf was in there.
I guess, yeah.
And so, which obviously anyone who is watching this, if you haven't seen the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, check it out. It's a lot better than the theatrical cut. It fills in all the plot holes, helps with the pacing, and just fixes like most issues people have.
When it comes to action, it actually has less action. I think that's what the most complaints about it from people in that movie is like, where's the action? And it has,
because
it's called Batman v Superman. I mean,
it has like technically more action because they did cut a little bit of stuff, but most of the action is still in there.
Is at the end, I guess.
But at the same time, it's a 3-hour movie versus a 2.5-hour movie. But you're going to have like the same amount of action in a 2.5-hour movie. It's going to feel like there's more action because a higher percentage of the movie has the action. And so, also, fun fact though, like it's Batman v Superman technically, not Batman versus Superman, because the V indicates kind of like an ideological conflict, because that's kind of what the movie
yeah.
is about, not like technically like an actual like fist fight.
That's what people I think got really upset about, because they were expecting like these two characters to clash like in the comic books, but I think what he wanted to go was a slow burn, like a slow paced film, like a drama.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Batman v Superman like is a drama, like, and even like, but even in the comics though, like that, like even like the Dark Knight Returns, Superman and Batman don't fight for like that long, but
Oh
people,
yeah,
but the marketing,
the marketing was all
I
over the
won't, I
place.
won't get,
Yeah,
I won't get into the marketing right now, but the marketing for Batman v Superman on the tail end wasn't good. The
yeah.
beginning, the marketing started off really well, but then they started just advertising the action, and that caused people to think it was just going to be another big action flick, which it's not. It's more so like drama.
Mm-hmm.
And so, where were we? Before Batman v Superman, before talking about that. No, but like, with regards to say like Zack Snyder's Justice League,
Mm-hmm.
and like Steppenwolf and all that, it's kind of like, uh, we legitimately could be getting more, because I don't know why you'd set up Darkseid. The Zack Snyder's Justice League will also set up, it will also end up setting up Ben Affleck's solo movie, which his
Mm-hmm.
solo movie was going to be for, basically Lex Luthor hiring Deathstroke to try to take out Batman.
Which was set up in the credit scene of
Well,
Justice League.
they kind of like changed that. Joss Whedon
Wasn't
reshot.
doesn't isn't there an anti-Justice League?
There is.
That's what they're trying to set up, I think.
But the line that Lex Luthor has, like, shouldn't we have a league of our own, is a reshoot.
Yeah.
Everything else in that scene is a Zack Snyder shot, and it's going to be much longer. You're going to have Lex recruiting Deathstroke to take out Ben Affleck. And here's the thing. Bob Greenblatt, who is, I think he's the chairman for Warner Media, but he might not be, but he might be. Essentially, he's one of the top guys at Warner Media, and he is saying, like, when asked about the 20 to 30 million that they're pouring into the Snyder Cut, now Zack Snyder's Justice League, he responded with, "I wish it was only 30 million," which led a lot of people to believe that it's probably a lot more, and it could potentially be like 60 million or something. So why are you pouring that much money to let him not instead of just to finish it, but to let him do additional photography and revert a lot of different things to how his original ideas and release it? Why are you going to hint at Darkseid? Well, like, potentially about, like, if you're going to keep the scene in there that hints at Ben Affleck's solo movie, why would you keep that in there if it's not going to have any payoff? And I think that it's a real possibility that they might continue with, say, Justice League 2 and Justice League 3, and potentially Ben Affleck coming back as Batman. Now, a lot of people might be like, oh, but Ben Affleck, he left the role, and we have Robert Pattinson. But once again, like we talked about earlier in this episode, the multiverse. And so one thing that, so a lot of people are like, oh, but, he's left the role. The Batman role made him, like, almost drink himself to death, but that's not actually true.
Yeah, well, he just hated the people behind the scenes. He just didn't like working with those people.
So
but most of those people are gone now. So
yeah, absolutely. So there are three big reasons why Ben Affleck left the role. So one, he signed up for Zack Snyder's vision of Batman. That's what got him hooked on the character. And so that when the studio started meddling with everything Snyder was doing and started messing with Ben Affleck's Batman script, because he already wrote the script, like, it's basically done. Like, Jay Oliva has said it's like the best Batman script he's ever read, and so that's something that, like, speaks volumes, especially a guy who's directed some of the best DC animated movies. And then you also look at the fact that obviously studio interference and just meddling with both Zack Snyder and his work, and him trying to work on the Batman script, so that he's like, screw it, I'm done. The fact that also he was dealing with alcoholism and a divorce at the time.
Yeah.
And so, but now he has his personal life back in order. He's dating Ana de Armas and seems to be really happy right now. He's also, like, in really, really good shape. If you, like, paparazzi, like, takes pictures of him, like, every day, like, going out on a walk. And he's in, like, basically back in, like, Batman v Superman shape. So, like, he's in really good shape now. And he's also, once again, Zack Snyder seems to be back in the helm potentially,
Mhm.
and there might be no studio interference. So if he was approached by AT&T or Warner Bros. Or whatever, Warner Media, and been like, hey, we'd love for you to make your Batman movie for HBO Max or whatever, why wouldn't
Or
you
a
take
TV
that
or a
up?
TV show.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a limited series, a TV show. Why wouldn't you pass up on that opportunity if you're back with able to do it with people you love? Like he himself has said, like, I love Zack Snyder, like I'll do anything for him.
Mhm.
And so I think that I'm not saying that's 100% like, oh yeah, Ben Affleck's obviously going to come back, but I think it's a real possibility that he could.
Mhm.
And then Joe Manganiello, like he said he'd love to return as Deathstroke. So
And
obviously,
there's rumors that Henry Cavill's getting a Man of Steel 2, but
mhm.
I think he might be just completely done and just in
I,
general.
I don't think Henry Cavill's done. I think the big indication of that is the fact that he appeared on the Man of Steel watch party with Zack Snyder
Okay.
to announce when he announced the Snyder Cut. And basically, he appeared on that. That kind of indicates to me that, yeah, he's still Superman. We'll see what plans they have for him. They obviously, if they continue with Justice League 2 and 3, they'll obviously, he'll obviously be in those.
Yeah.
They might be making a Man of Steel 2. We obviously don't know if what exactly the details are with that, whether it's like, oh, we're still trying to find the right story or the right director or say the right um, like timing, I guess you could say, because like I don't know what Henry Cavill's schedule looks like with doing The Witcher
Yeah.
and everything like
He's a
that.
busy man at this
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
He's
So
working on season 2 and 3, I believe. So he has a lot of stuff on his plate, and he even has a couple movies coming out. I
yeah,
need to look.
so we'll see. Even like The Rock, obviously The Rock gets what The Rock
Yeah,
wants, and
isn't he play a villain role
yeah,
from
The Rock
like
is playing Black Adam, and he
yeah.
wants Henry Cavill in that movie. So honestly, if The Rock wants that to happen, it'll happen. The Rock gets what The Rock wants.
I mean,
So
The
it,
Rock's in too many movies.
I'm hoping like if he is Black Adam, that he's able to deliver like a really unique performance and something that he hasn't done before.
I mean, I don't hate The Rock. He's just
He's just the
it,
same person in every movie.
exactly.
That's the big problem. No, but
Um,
um,
yeah,
no, but even like I mean, personally, I'd love for Zack Snyder to direct Man of Steel. Well, okay, and so when we say Man of Steel 2, technically Batman v Superman is Man of Steel 2 because it's the direct sequel, and there was never plans for a direct sequel. J.L. Leva has actually talked about that, how
yeah.
there was no plans for like another solo Superman movie, and
And
how
maybe he doesn't need another solo
and
movie.
so like for me, if like say if they got the solo movie after Justice League 3, I'd be fine with Zack Snyder not directing, but personally, I would love the Zack Snyder direct.
Well,
Like,
this is his universe, and I think if it's okay, it's fine if he doesn't direct, but he needs to be there to make sure that nothing happens to his world that he created and gets destroyed by someone like Ryan Johnson with Star Wars. And so
no, yeah, but uh, if Henry Cavill did get another movie, he most likely would be a producer. Zack Snyder would be.
yeah.
Like the same way he's a producer on Wonder Woman 84. Like he's the one who cast Henry Cavill. He casted Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa. He casted all these characters. So he would end up being like a producer, or like he was an executive producer on Aquaman because he wasn't really involved, but I think he is somewhat involved on Wonder Woman 84. And the same way like Christopher Nolan was a producer on Man of Steel. He was kind of like a hands-on producer. And that's ultimately why Man of Steel has no studio interference.
Hmm.
And so, like, I think Man of Steel is definitely like the best Superman movie that we've ever gotten. Like even Dan Jurgens, like I mentioned, I think he's like the best Superman writer of all time. Like he loves Man of Steel and BVS, and is
Hmm.
really looking forward to the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
So, so we'll see what the future holds for DC and Zack Snyder's universe and everything regarding with that, from like Henry Cavill to Ben Affleck, et cetera, et cetera. As well as like DC fandom. I'm sure you're gonna record something or of some sort and put on an episode on that. So if you wanted me to be on that for DC fandom or whatever, let me know though.
Yeah, set me up and let me know what we're going to talk about, and I'll do some research. And if it's anything about Justice League, I'll check out the movie. Uh,
Don't do that.
what we should do is like we should bench watch the Snyder Cut movies, or in his world, and like talk about every single one of them. I was actually thinking about doing that for the review show,
Yeah,
before the Snyder Cut comes out.
yeah, no, like prep yourself for Zack Snyder's Justice League, like watch like Man of Steel and then BVS, and then that leads like straight into the Snyder Cut.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it's a really exciting time to be a DC fan. I think like Zack Snyder's Justice League is my most anticipated movie of all time, honestly, for me personally, because obviously me being part of like the Snyder Cut movement, fighting for this movie for like 2.5 years, not knowing when it was going to come and if Warner Bros would ever release it, and then finally like knowing that like, oh yeah, it's coming, and then like Zack Snyder actually had at Justice Con, I believe it was like this last weekend on like I believe it was July 25th. He basically had a little panel. That's where he ended up revealing the black suit Superman scene, and he actually.
And the black suit is it's supposed to be his original suit, because from Man of Steel, every suit on Krypton was a black suit, and so if you're going to call Superman evil, you might as well call everyone evil on Krypton.
Yeah, no, but like it's his he said that the whole that scene that he showed isn't finished. So
Yeah.
whether it's color grading or touching up the suit,
And
I don't
originally
know.
that scene was supposed to be Green Lantern as well. And
Yeah,
so
I have heard about stuff like that. We'll see what happens. I mean, Green Lantern's going to be in Zack Snyder's Justice League. We just don't know when or where.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. I mean, there were all the rumors about him potentially being in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but we'll see how all that turns out. But no, yeah, with Zack Snyder actually did though during his panel at Justice Con reveal that like new Justice League shirts with a little thing like with an associate producer tag on the back, being like all the people who helped campaign for the Snyder Cut are technically like associate producers on Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is pretty cool. And being like,
like it would be nice to put their names all in the credits.
Oh, there would be like way too many credits. Would like roll for like an hour. No, but
see, it's like the credits is the 6-hour episode, and the episode's like 30 minutes long.
So that's why the Snyder Cut's so long.
Yeah.
No, but it's really cool because it's like to think about like I'm gonna try to put that on my resume now. Like I'm an associate producer for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
That's funny.
Yeah. So we'll obviously see what the future of movies and comic book movies. I know that like obviously the MCU dropped out of San Diego Comic-Con like online.
Yeah.
And like actually Zack Snyder's Justice Con panel had gotten more views than anything in San Diego Comic-Con. So like I mean people are excited for the Snyder Cut. I think it will be massively successful. It's honestly critic proof too, because it's on streaming. You don't have to worry about critics.
Well, I mean, it can still get like a rating, I think.
Well, it will get a rating, but at the same time, that won't affect people's perception of it, because you know how in most movies, critics get to see the movie first, and then there's a rating. There's a rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and then the movie comes out for all of us to see.
Unless something comes along where critics can get streaming first, and that would be annoying.
No, but with Zack Snyder's Justice League, with like HBO Max and streaming, it gets put on HBO Max, and then we all have access to it at the same time.
Do you have HBO Max? Okay, so I haven't seen how HBO Max looks. So does the Netflix, is it like the Netflix way where they have the percentage by the movie, and it's like this is how people rate the movie or like how they feel about the movie? Because like on Netflix you have like a 70% or like a 80%, 90%, or like top 10 movies on Netflix or whatever.
I don't think so. I don't have HBO Max yet, but like I've seen screenshots and like videos of people like recording their screen and things like that, and I don't remember seeing anything like that.
Okay.
Like I'll most likely get HBO Max like the month leading up to Zack Snyder's Justice League.
There's nothing really on it besides Friends.
Yeah, there's Friends. Obviously, like DC movies are on there, but like even then, like it's not like they have all the DC.
Does HBO own DC?
Warner Bros. Does.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I think that. Well, did they make a deal, or do they own a certain part of Warner Bros?
Well, HBO Max is basically just AT&T / Warner Media's like streaming service.
Okay, so
And
it's
so
basically
it's similar to like Apple TV or obviously Disney or like Disney. That's just what they call it, HBO Max. Because
okay.
obviously there was like HBO Now, which was like their
That
previous streaming service.
It didn't go well. Um,
Yeah, and I think they're like kind of like consolidating it. I don't know if that's the right term, but basically like putting it like into HBO Max and things like that. Say for like DC Universe, there's a DC Universe app where you basically could get just like all of DC content, but like that was a fairly big failure, I think. And so I think, but like, yeah, they right now HBO Max isn't available worldwide too, so I think they're working out deals to try to get that sorted out. So yeah, we'll see. Like, I'm in no rush to get HBO Max though, but like I'll get it once, shortly before the Snyder Cut comes out, before it's like released. So
yeah, and they took Batman v Superman's theatrical cut off of and replaced it with the Ultimate.
Which is good because the Ultimate Edition is like the far superior version. And if you want people to watch what like your prime content is going to be, which is Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is what you're really hyping up that is exclusive to this streaming service, then you want the superior version, like the movie that comes right before that, to be watched. Because I think people kind of, I mean, slowly but surely might be coming around to it when they revisit the Ultimate Edition, because if you've only seen the theatrical cut, then it's like, okay, yeah, it wasn't a good movie, but then you see that there's an Ultimate Edition. And a lot of people kind of have that misconception, sort of like what you had, where obviously, and this is not your fault at all, but like the fact that it's just an extended cut.
Yeah.
But whereas it's not. That's like the Ultimate Edition is the original movie, and the theatrical cut is like a chopped up version. So
like when it comes to like when I hear like a cut, when I hear like an edition, I think of like, oh, reshoots. Okay, cool, great, additions. And so and I guess now thinking about it, I mean, yeah, if it was originally supposed to be 3 hours long but then cut down, then I can understand why, because my motto is like, get it right the first time or don't get it right at all. And so it's like, I mean,
yeah, no, I know what you mean, because there are a lot of movies that come out, and sometimes you don't, if it's a movie you didn't really care all that much about, after seeing it, then it's like, okay, even if there's another edition, another version,
this one's going to be like the most memorable one.
Like you'd be like, oh, do I even really want to revisit it? Do I care that much?
Yeah.
But like HBO Max showing like only the Ultimate Edition, I think is a very smart move. Especially because, I mean, they're advertising Zack Snyder's Justice League as a completely different movie from the theatrical cut of Justice League, which it literally is. It literally is a completely different movie. Like I mentioned, 3.5 hours of unseen footage. So that's kind of going to be something that I think people need to see and realize that, obviously, and you still see people online thinking that like the Snyder Cut and Justice League are going to be like similar, and it's just going to be some like 20 or 30 more minutes of footage. And it's like, well, it's not though, like, because it's literally 3.5 hours of unseen footage with like 30 minutes of footage that we've already seen, which is like nothing.
Yeah.
So yes, like it's, I think I know a lot about what's going to be in the Snyder Cut, and I think it's really going to blow people away. Even people who didn't like Batman v Superman, even people who like weren't big fans of Man of Steel. I really think that Zack Snyder's Justice League will blow a lot of people away. People really will be wowed by it.
I mean, there's a lot to live up to, and a lot that needs to be pulled off. And if the Snyder Cut fails, which will be really surprising if it does, I think if the Snyder Cut fails, I think it's time for Warner Brothers to give up the license of the DC. I mean, don't give it to Disney. I think Disney already owns enough. They own Fox, and so like movies like Alien, that's not going to be the same anymore. I think they're still working on the last 2 of the franchise for that. But like, so if it does not pay off, and they decide to give up the license, give it up to a smaller company, so then they don't have the biggest budget like these other studios would have. So then they can just work with what they got, because usually with the smaller the budget you have, the better payoff it is. They probably even should just do that in general. The smaller, give the studio, give the people that they're working on this film the smallest budget, like give them like a good reasonable budget, and if they need a little bit more money, not like $100,000 or $100 million or anything like that, or anything huge, they need like a couple of $1,000s, like $50,000 to add a little bit more to these scenes, then that's fine. But that's what they need to do, is that they just need to combine the budget down, so then the people that are working on the film can't really go out and worry about all these meaningless things. It's like worry about the thing that you're focused on. And so it's like, okay, if you're gonna make a movie about Batman, have it just be about Batman instead of trying to set up a universe. And so,
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like that very much depends on what movie it is. Like, you're not gonna be able to make a movie like Infinity War or Endgame.
well,
with a
no,
small
that's
budget,
what I'm
you
trying
know?
to say. But I'm like it depends. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Is like, okay, well, the biggest problem is because you give the people too much money, and so it's like, oh, we have all the money in the world, let's go all at it, see what happens, and it doesn't pull off. It's like, oh great, we wasted all that money for what? And that's what you kind of see all these DC movies, and I'm not talking about the DCU just itself, like previous DC movies, like Batman and Robin. You know how much money was put in that thing? Like, there was so much money put in that, and look how it turned out.
I mean, George Clooney apologized for that. He
I mean,
apologized for being Batman. So
you think he would make a cameo?
I know. I don't think he'd ever want to come back to that. Yeah, no. No, but I mean, I think it just depends on the type of movie that you're trying to make. You're not gonna be able to make a big blockbuster with big CGI, action sets, and big set pieces like that with a small budget. Like, even like Joker had a budget of $65 million, and the funny thing is, obviously, there was a huge success, made over $1 billion at the box office on, obviously, like I said, only like a $65 million budget, and Warner Bros. At the time was literally too scared to invest in that movie, so they only invested half into the movie, so they only got like half the profit.
Yeah.
Like, Todd Phillips said, like, oh, I don't want to get paid, I just want to cut like 10% of the box office. So he made $100 million from making Joker, because Warner Bros. At the time, that was like kind of like under the previous management, like the previous executives who meddled with Justice League and everything. They had such little faith in that movie that backfired on them, because that was like literally the biggest success of 2019.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like, obviously, like, hindsight is 2020 with certain things. Even like Wonder Woman was supposed to come out in November of 2019.
Yeah.
But then they delayed it to the summer of 2020, because they're like, oh, we want a big summer blockbuster, and look how that's turned out now. We still haven't seen it, and it might get delayed again, even though it got delayed to October.
I'm not really excited for that movie anyways, because like they bring back one character that died, so it fixes the previous ending.
Well,
it's like, okay, cool, great, thanks for the sacrifice, but I'll see you in the next movie. And so
I think that has to do with kind of like that. If you watch the trailer, Max Lord has some sort of like rock.
He probably has something done to him.
I think Diana wishes for Steve Trevor to come back, and he's like, and like, if you listen to what Maxwell Lord and what he's kind of like saying during the trailer, it's like, imagine like everything you ever wanted and things like that. And I think, he'll most likely die again, but like, obviously, I'm not super hyped for it either. I'm really excited Hans Zimmer is doing the score for it, because obviously he made Wonder Woman's theme in Batman v Superman. But I love Hans Zimmer. He's like my favorite composer and everything. And so I like certain aspects is like, I'm excited for it. Like, at the same time, I'm like not so sure about the tone, because I know that was part of like kind of like a movie from the old regime of Warner Bros., where they were still trying to like very much go, oh, let's do makes like lighthearted movies, which I have no problem with. I don't have a problem with the tone of Shazam or even or like Aquaman.
Shazam actually surprised me, to be honest. It actually really surprised me, even though the story wasn't there. But there was some good character moments in. But
yeah, like I just my big concern is like how much of like a studio like make this lighthearted for the sake of being lighthearted is it? You know what I mean? Like if the story requires it to be lighthearted, then go for it. Like such as Shazam, like he's a lighthearted character, and obviously the story as a whole was lighthearted, which obviously I have no problem with. But like obviously we know that Warner Bros is trying to move away from like darker stories. So you know, we'll see when it comes out. Obviously, we don't even know when we'll end up seeing it. Obviously, it's scheduled for October right now, I believe.
I think I can look. I thought it was August or something like that.
It got moved from August. I think Tenet took its old spot.
Yeah, Tenet comes out on August 12th.
Yeah.
Oh, it says intentional release August 12th. It doesn't say anything else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it got moved to October, but I mean, regardless, like
October 2nd. There it is.
Yeah,
okay.
there we go. But yeah, no, we'll see how the future of DC is and just comic book movies. I was kind of burned out of comic book movies, especially if everything was just gonna be the same like lighthearted tone, similar to like the MCU. I was just like burned out. I was like, I'm not excited for superhero movies. Like, just like I'm burned out. But then like after Zack Snyder's Justice League got announced, and then kind of like that, I was like reinvigorated about being like excited for comic book movies again. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go with regards to superhero movies. I hope the MCU takes risks, and in Phase 4 and Phase 5 and going forward, because now is the time to do it. Because
you have completely new characters that we have not.
You peaked. You have new characters. You can please take risks. I don't want just safe cookie cutter.
They've been hinting the multiverse, which people really want to see. And so,
let directors kind of give them more creative freedom, because I know Disney doesn't do that as much as Warner Bros. Messed with, directors in the DCEU like Zack Snyder and David Ayer. Disney does that and the MCU does that beforehand. So while Warner Bros. Came in and would say, "Oh, we are meddling with your movie, after you make it and during the process." Disney goes, "Oh, we are going to meddle with everything beforehand, and you have to make the movie this way, and the script has to be written like this, and everything like that." So I don't know. We'll see. I think if DC starts taking a lot of risks and goes the multiverse route, that might force the MCU to take risks.
Yeah.
And do things that potentially you've never seen before, and that's how you get great movies. Like think about how revolutionary Star Wars was, and Jaws, and Superman the movie, and a lot of these movies that came out in the 70s and 80s, and how that Blade Runner, and how these movies changed cinema. It's that's what happens when you take risks. You think of The Dark Knight. You think of just a lot of these big movies that changed cinematic history. It's that didn't happen. And you think of Stanley Kubrick's movies. You think of obviously although his movies didn't get critically acclaimed when they first came out, but obviously we view his movies now as amazing. But we'll you push the envelope by taking risks. And I think we'll probably be closing here soon. We've been talking for over 2 hours.
Let's make it long as the Snyder Cut.
All right, 2 more hours to go.
Oh, God. It's almost been 3 hours. Gee.
No, but we'll you push the boundaries, and I think Disney, with what they're doing with their remakes, just remake animated movies, and even with the MCU, they don't want to take risks. They just want to do what's safe, and because they know that's what makes them money. But what really can help change cinema, can help move movies forward, is what is revolutionary. Think of Christopher Nolan's movies and how revolutionary some of those have been. And so I really hope that's something that Hollywood really considers. Hopefully they don't just keep trying to make just lame video game remakes and, you know, remaking The Lion King and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, take risks and come up with
Is there a person that runs Hollywood? I don't like.
I mean, there are certain people who run the big studios and thus, in a way, run Hollywood. But like, there's no like one person overseeing everything. So
Sooner or later it'll be Disney, but all right.
Let's hope not.
Oh God.
Thank you to Peter for joining me this episode. This was a whole lot of fun. Something new, something different. Maybe I'll do this a little bit more where I'll talk about something else instead of news that happened over the week. I mean, I don't know. I'm still getting used to doing these episodes because I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know what I'm doing with my YouTube channel still. But hopefully you guys are enjoying these episodes. Again, thank you for Peter for joining me. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you can return in future episodes. But anyway, thank you guys for watching or listening. Like always, I'll see you guys in the next episode.